Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. We're really excited to have you with us today. We've got Joe Castro on the line here from Taxware. Joe, you there?
I am.
Excellent. So we're going to have a great lineup of material for you today. Before we get started, I do have a quick favor to ask of all of you. There's going to be a one-question poll that pops up on your screen momentarily. It's just how did you first hear about us? If you could fill that out, I'm going to leave it up for maybe 20 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the webinar. And I see that many of you are voting. For those of you just joining, if you don't mind filling out this quick one-question poll, I'm going to maybe keep it up for 10 more seconds, and then we're going to get started. All right, and I see that most of you have gone ahead and voted, so let me close this poll. We can go ahead and get started. All right, so my name is Emily. I'm a product marketing manager here at Cisco. And again, with me today, for those of you who are just joining, is Joe Castro from Taxware. Really excited to have him with us today. Here's the agenda. What we're going to do, I'm going to go through a very brief introduction and overview of Cisco Meraki, a little bit about our cloud networking architecture, and then we're going to get pretty quickly into the case study, which is Taxware for today, and it's going to be sort of a fireside chat between me and Joe. At any point in time during this webinar, if you have questions, either for me or for Joe, please type them into your chat box or your Q&A box, I think, that should be on the corner of your screen. My good friend and colleague Olivia is with us here today, and she's going to be fielding all of those questions, answering the ones that she can, and putting the most commonly asked questions up on a board. And during this session, and perhaps immediately after the presentation, we're going to share the most commonly asked questions with the audience and try to answer them for you. Now, we're also really excited because Joe has agreed to let us demo his network. So we're going to look very quickly and briefly at Taxware's Meraki network, and then we'll wrap up with a quick overview of the product line and, as I said, dive into some Q&A, time permitting. So, without further ado, for those of you who are qualified IT professionals on the call today, we are excited to offer you free access points for joining us today. It'll be an 11N access point. It's 100% free, yours to keep and use, and a great way to get your hands on Cisco Meraki technology. All the features that we demo today on the wireless side are going to be there and present. We're going to have a 3-year cloud license with it as well, so it will be fully operational. And if you have any questions about your eligibility or sort of the details of this promo, definitely check out the URL at the bottom of your screen. And what we do need from you is to confirm your shipping information, actually. That's to get the access point out to you. You should have received a reminder email in your inbox. In that email about this webinar, and in that email you should find the contact information for your Cisco Meraki rep, their phone number and their email address, and that's who you're going to contact after this webinar to make sure that your contact information is correct so we can ship that AP out to you. All right. Without further ado, so a little bit about Cisco Meraki. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we were a company, actually, Meraki, founded in 2006 by a research team from MIT. Now, this team was working on a project known as the RoofNet project. It was dealing primarily with trying to figure out how to manage access points over the internet, so wireless access points. So we did get our start in the wireless space, and so you can say we've been in the cloud since day one. And since then, we've branched out. We do security appliances, we do switches, we have free mobile device management. So really a full stack of cloud-managed networking gear from top to bottom. Makes us the leader in cloud-managed networking. We have seen some great growth, and we do have customers and clients all over the world from most verticals that you could possibly think of. Been recognized for innovation in many spheres, from IT analysts and the media. And we're really excited because we were acquired by Cisco almost a year ago, in fact, late last year. So we do now form Cisco's Cloud Networking Group, and we're excited. We're committed to continuing the research and development on all 4 of the product lines that I just mentioned, and using our new reach to bring Meraki products to new markets. So this is just a slide, kind of giving you a little bit of a vantage point into some of our clientele. We are trusted by thousands of customers, and like I said, we really do span nearly all verticals. You can think of clients in construction and manufacturing, in hospitality, in retail. We've got some clients in healthcare, of course K-12 and education, professional services, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said before, some big and small clients, and this is just a slide here giving you some examples. Now, I do want to briefly discuss our cloud-managed networking architecture, because it is something when we're introducing, Cisco Meraki and Cisco Meraki products to folks who are not familiar with us, that there's a lot of questions about this. Sometimes it's, well, what do you mean by cloud? How does that work? And then sometimes it gets into a bit more of the nitty-gritty details. How does it work? Is it secure, et cetera, et cetera. So at a very high level, this is what it looks like. Essentially what we have are our equipment, our Cisco Meraki access points, our switches, our security appliances. These are, of course, hosted, it's on-premise hosted hardware at your various locations and various sites. And this hardware will initiate a secure encrypted connection back to our cloud. And by cloud, I mean our data centers hosted all over the world. And you will access the cloud through a web-based dashboard. So you open up a web browser from any internet accessible device anywhere in the world and manage your on-premise devices through the cloud. Now, one thing that I really want to highlight is that we do have an out-of-band architecture, so we are very secure, and there's some serious benefits to being cloud-based. So one of them, of course, along the lines of security, again, out-of-band architecture. So what that means is no end user data is ever stored in or passed through our cloud. We don't see it. We're literally just capturing the management and monitoring statistics that we need to provide the graphs and data points on consumption and maybe the applications being used across your network, and you'll see the kind of data that we can present to you in our demo when we do demo the Taxware network. But it is, again, out of band, so no end user data is ever seen or stored in our cloud. I should also mention that this connection back to our cloud is secure. It's encrypted twice, once with proprietary encryption and again with SSL. It's a pretty small connection. It averages about 1 kilobit per second per device. And also, while we're talking about security, I should say that we are using SSAE 16 or formerly SAS 70 certified Tier 1 data centers. We have high availability and redundancy built into those data centers. There's real-time failover in the event of mass outages. We ourselves are PCI Level 1 compliant. We have customers that have built HIPAA and PCI compliant networks using our gear. Data centers undergo daily penetration testing from McAfee. And then there's a lot of security built into our dashboard itself. So we support things like two-factor authentication to the dashboard, password complexity requirements for anyone logging in, role-based access control for admin logins, and things like that. Now, another benefit that we have that's due to our cloud-based nature is our scalability. So we're virtually able to grow and shrink with your needs, however large or however small you may be. We actually, the world's largest cloud networking network or cloud networking deployment that I'm aware of is Motel 6. It runs Cisco Meraki access points. It's a network on the order of 10,000 access points spread across about 620 locations. They got that network up and running in less than 6 months. So we really can scale to a sort of very big size if need be. But then we also have clients that have, maybe just a handful of access points. It's very, very easy to get your devices up and running in minutes. What we do support, again, because we are cloud-based, is true zero-touch deployment. So what you can do is pre-configure any of your devices before they've ever been connected to the internet, before they've ever been plugged into power. And once they are plugged in to the internet and connected to power, they'll grab their configuration from the cloud and run with it. So it really makes sort of remote site deployment super easy. And then again, we're reliable. We have a 4 nines uptime SLA agreement with our data centers, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're interested in finding out more details about this, we have just a huge amount of information posted on our website at the URL that you see down at the bottom of your screen. That's meraki.cisco.com/trust. Definitely encourage you to check it out. We talk about the security features and failovers methods of our data centers. We've got information about our certifications and things like that. So definitely go to that website if you have any other questions. So just to sort of wrap up the introduction, again, we've got 4 product lines: wireless access points, security appliances, switches, and again, free mobile device management that supports iOS, Androids, Macs, PCs, and Chromebooks. All of these products are managed through a single pane of glass, one-stop shopping basically for managing your network. You just log in again to the dashboard. Anywhere in the world you have internet access, so super, super easy. And I should mention that all of these products are designed to be 100% cloud managed. We don't support private cloud, but there are some built-in local configuration settings available to you in the event that you lose WAN connectivity. But again, 100% cloud managed by design, and there are full networking and security features built in. And we'll see some of that again in the demo. So here's the main event. We've got Joe Castro on the line. We're going to talk about his Cisco Meraki network, Taxware. Joe, if you're on the line, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. As was mentioned, my name is Joe Castro. I'm the Director of IT at Taxware. I'm responsible for the office infrastructure. Our business is a SaaS operation, and we separate the office technology and infrastructure, servers, AD, Exchange, all of that, from our product offerings to our customers. And my area of accountability is strictly office. So my team, as is on the slide, at the high point was 5. We're actually down to 4 right now. And we're accountable for all aspects of IT infrastructure for the offices.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then do you want to just give a little bit of context about Taxware, just for those who may be unfamiliar with it? Great.
Sure. It's our business is sales and use tax calculations for both on-prem and SaaS offerings for clients that a typical scenario is imagine something like an Amazon, although Amazon's not a customer of ours, where you're purchasing and shipping over state and county lines and being able to calculate the sales and use tax on the fly. There's additional services we offer, but that's the core of our business. Okay. We used to be part of a larger parent company. Until last year, our business was carved out of that parent company and purchased by an equity investment firm. So that leads into why we were looking to make an investment in our new network technology. We had to physically separate from our old ownership, build a new environment, and design it in a way that we felt was most appropriate.
That's actually a perfect segue, because my first question for you on this slide was going to be if you could tell us a little bit about your previous architecture and what the challenges were and why you were looking for a new solution. So it sounds like you're sort of forced to find a new solution, but had there been any challenges in your older architecture that you were looking to solve as well?
Well, I think the biggest one was we were a division of a very large company, and when you're in a large company, as I'm assuming most people on the call will be familiar with, you have specialists, and it's specifically around the network environment. You've got your Cisco certified engineers that are very deep in network management. But because of our size, we're a 300-person business. As I mentioned, my team right now is 4 people. We don't have the luxury of staffing with specialists that are deep in one area, but not very broad in their background. So what we were looking for was a solution that what we described as more of an IT generalist could manage. I mean, you still need an understanding of networks, but you don't need to be Cisco certified and very deep in network engineering. And that was a big driving factor given our size.
Awesome. When you were actually researching Meraki, were there any concerns that you had initially that were sort of successfully addressed either through an evaluation or once you deployed?
It wasn't a concern. It was a lack of familiarity. And what I mean by that is I was made aware of the Meraki products by a colleague of mine that's part of the equity investment firm. I did sit in on a few of these webinars to get familiar with the products. And I also did take advantage of the free AP, and I think that, and I recommend that to anybody that's even remotely interested, that gave me a chance to work on the dashboard at home and really get familiar with what the experience would be managing, in this case, the wireless portion of the network, but really the look and feel of the dashboard altogether.
And did you start just by deploying one product line and then branching out, or did you just decide up front that you wanted a full stack?
It was important to me to have a single point of view of our network. So once I felt comfortable with, at a high level, the technology and the support and the products available, we went with as you mentioned, the wireless switches and the security appliances out of the box.
Okay, great. So just in terms of benefits of Cisco Meraki, I think I've pretty much tried to highlight these in the introduction, but again, just to sort of repeat this, we do have great security. Our data centers are highly secure, highly redundant. We have 4 nines uptime SLA agreements, PCI compliance. There's that zero-touch deployment scenario that can be very helpful if you're trying to manage multiple remote sites. And I think something that Joe just hinted at, of course, we've got the tightly integrated full stack solution, so that really helps you manage or maximize, I should say, your visibility and control. Can you talk a little bit, Joe, about your evaluation and deployment process that you went through?
Sure. Well, the evaluation, as I mentioned, was more getting familiar with the product, and of course, this started in the beginning of this year, so it was after the Cisco acquisition. That lent a certain amount of safety from my perspective on what we were getting into, and then being more familiar with the product and seeing how it fit into our needs was really the background on how we came to want to purchase it. We had worked with a channel partner, Red River, and in-house staff knowledge of the product. One of their folks here was certified in the Meraki support environment, Meraki engineering. So we were able to leverage them as a partner to, not just purchase the hardware, but provide training and do some initial configuration. But then also, like I said, train us to be able to take it and run with it once it was up and available. We had a pretty tight window. Our office was being built out, so it was only a few weeks between when the server room was going to be available and when folks are going to be coming on site. So that was the other big reason why we needed to leverage Red River in this case. It was just a very tight window to get it, ordered, delivered, implemented, tested, and made available to all of our users.
Okay, thank you. So there was a question apparently from the audience for me about sort of dashboard views and whether or not you could restrict dashboard access on an as-needs basis. And the answer is yes. Like I said, we do have sort of role-based access to the dashboard. So just sort of an overview, if you're unfamiliar, when you create a dashboard account, you're creating an organizational account, and then inside that organization you have the ability to carve out or create multiple networks, individual networks. And at the organizational level and at the network level, you can specify admins. So they might be the same admins across all networks in their organization, or certain admins might only have access to one or particular subset of networks. And within a network, within an organization, you can also specify read-only or full access, for example. There's also the ability to set specific guest ambassador accounts for folks who may need to dole out guest usernames and passwords to guests temporarily, and so they're only able to see a subset of the dashboard. So yes, so that's a great question. Thank you again. If you have questions, definitely keep typing them in. Olivia's capturing them and writing them on the board. Really appreciate it. But moving along, getting a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of Taxware's network. I'm about to go dig deep. Question for you, Joe, although you sort of hinted at it, was how long did it take you to deploy both sites? Or did you just set up your headquarters at first and then eventually roll out your secondary site out in Maine?
So we did that. We had, as I mentioned, we had a couple of weeks. It was over the course of the month of, end of June, beginning of July. We basically were pushing the folks that were doing the cabling to get the server room available for us to do the implementation. It was only about 3 weeks from the point of receiving the hardware, installing it, getting it configured, doing tests. And when I say that, the actual cabling wasn't completed until the day before people moved in here. So even the testing was as good as we can do, but not perfect. I mean, while 3 weeks sounds like in some cases a long time, that was 3 weeks of everything, and this network configuration was just one piece of it. So if we took out all the other things we were doing, we could have probably had it, like I said, installed, configured, and available in like 3 days. Which, and I back that up by saying, when we went to do the Maine office, that was an environment that was on the network from our previous employer, and so they stayed in the same site. They didn't move, and we had to install all the equipment, get the network configured and available for them all over the course of a weekend. Now, obviously, it didn't have the same scale, but the complexities were still there because we had AP, the security appliance, and the switches as well.
Okay, we had a question from the audience for you, which was, are you using any IPsec functionality or MPLS?
Our network is MPLS. IPsec tunneling, not within our network. We have some, and this starts getting into the complexity of our environment. We do have some IPsec tunneling out, but it's not part of the Meraki footprint, if that makes sense.
Okay. And another question was, are you implementing VoIP at all?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We have an external VoIP supplier and IP phones in our environment, and all of our switches. At one point, I was considering doing half PoE, half non-PoE, but then it just started getting irritating trying to manage it. So I said, all right, we'll just get all PoE switches. So basically, our users can take their phone, plug it in anywhere in our network, and they should be functional. So what we found is there's a lot of folks moving around and changing seats, and we just tell them, just take your phone with you, and we all set.
Great. So I just switched over to the next slide because we do want to talk a little bit about your infrastructure in depth, starting with sort of the wireless. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about your setup, give us some estimate of how many SSIDs you're broadcasting, how you're securing your wireless, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. We really just use 2 SSIDs at this point because we don't have the need to segment it any further. As mentioned on the slide, we have a guest network, which the Meraki appliance has some great configuration tools that will limit what the guests can touch, and we basically just shunt them right out to the internet on our backup internet pipe. And then we have a secured corporate network, which uses the radius authentication. And we were in such a rush, that was a more recent change. Originally, and I understand it's not a good security design, but we were using passkey authentication. just to get it up and running, and then we were able to, after that, implement the radius solution.
We got another question, which, if you can estimate, roughly how many clients are you serving per access point, do you think? Or what's your sort of typical usage per AP?
It ranges from 30 to 50. We have some areas of our floor that are very high density and others that aren't.
Okay.
So we're about, I don't want to do anything that Meraki might not appreciate, but we use the estimation tool on how many APs we need given our square footage, and we went less than that. We wanted to start below it, and then if we found a need, add to it. So I think we went, what was it, about 75% of what the recommendation was, and we've had really great coverage throughout the floor. We have no problems at all. Like I said, it ranges between 30 and 50 per AP.
Great, great. And I think maybe sort of tangential to that, we got a question from the audience. How big is sort of the buildings that these APs are in? If you can sort of give an estimate in terms of like stories, are they big buildings, small buildings, sort of space-wise, I guess.
We're a single floor, and it's about 50,000 square feet, but it's in a weird donut shape. So the middle of the floor is elevators and stairs and all of that. So it's kind of a donut. And so we just ringed the environment with the APs, like I said, and spread 10 out kind of evenly around the donut, and it seemed to work fine.
Okay. And then as far as your sort of clients, are you using both Macs and PCs at your offices, or are you standardized on a single client OS?
Well, from an internal, that's an interesting question. Our standard platform for laptops are Windows. We have some users that are Apple-based, but they manage it themselves. But then also on the guest network, we allow smartphones. So you've got a ton of iPhones on that as well.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the guest network and how easy or hard it was for you to set up, and sort of anything special you're doing there, any sort of traffic shaping or group policies? Is it isolated? That sort of thing.
So by design, I think this was the Meraki design piece. It is on an isolated network. It's not part of the defined VLAN, so it can't connect to anything that we have internally. And we want to route the traffic out of our off our guest network out to our backup internet connection, but we haven't completed that yet. That's something that's going to be still in flight.
Okay. And then as far as your access points and everything else, the switches and the MX security appliance, how are you updating those? Like, have you ever opted out of an update? Have you ever had an issue with updates or firmware updates that we push out to you? Do you schedule those for a certain time?
We haven't had any issues. The only thing that has happened is we were testing an issue that we were having, and the support staff we were working with would push out an update on either one specific device or in a very limited way, just so we can do testing. But we haven't had any issues with the more automated deployments of like patches or updates. Okay, great.
And then one more question that I got was if you could speak at all about sort of client devices roaming, if you've had any issues with roaming, I guess either within a site or between sites, if applicable, for wireless?
Yeah, there's no roaming between sites, but if I understand the question, you're talking about moving from one AP to the other. It's been seamless. We try to make use of bringing our laptops to conference rooms that are spread across the building, so you get a lot of moving from one AP to the other, and it's seamless. I don't notice anything.
Great, great. So I think that might have been a question that Olivia just wrote up, which was, are there any issues with AP handoff from one AP to another?
Yeah,
I think that's what
no problem at all.
Great, awesome. Okay, so again, everyone on the call, if you still have wireless questions, keep them coming. I'm going to switch over just in the interest of time, though presentative-wise, and talk about sort of the wired side. And we did have a question from the audience, which is a great sort of segue for this slide, which was Are you using site-to-site VPN with your MXs, and if so, how easy was it to set up?
Yes, we are, and it was almost automatic. The two MXs identified each other and built the VPN based on the VLANs that we exposed to the VPN. We were trying doing some testing with WAN acceleration. It didn't have the impact we were looking for, but that has more to do with the kind of traffic we have moving back and forth. But we are taking advantage of that. Interestingly, I think part of the reason that became hugely important was our MPLS configuration and the routing tables the vendor defined for it. So it was a lifesaver, basically.
Great. What sort of traffic is being passed over the WAN opt, if you don't mind my asking?
So the remote office is a development testing site, so they move whether it's code between systems or large data files back and forth. It doesn't lend itself to the type of acceleration that you'd see if you were just doing like file shares or kind of web acceleration or something like that.
Okay. Are you using any of the sort of the dual WAN uplink capability of the MXs or the 3G, 4G cellular failover by any chance?
So we don't do the cellular. We had considered it for the remote site, but we were able to get the network connectivity cheap enough that it seemed like a better option for us. Both sites do have dual WAN uplinks, which was good news. There was a bit of a disconnect between us and our VoIP vendor as to the equipment they would either need or that they would bring in, and they needed a layer 3 device, which was a little unexpected on our part, but to be honest, it quickly plugged right into the MX and was a fine solution. We weren't expecting to use it for that. We were expecting to use the MXs just for the backup network, but the VoIP product needed a layer 3 device, and like I said, it plugged right in and worked great.
Great, great. So then I guess I'll just say, summarizing for this slide, for those of you who aren't familiar, and we'll take a look at this in the demo, like Joe said, the site-to-site VPN, super easy to set up. It literally takes 3 clicks in our dashboard to set up IPsec site-to-site VPN. The WAN optimization feature is included at no additional charge or no additional licensing fee in all of our MX security appliances. And we'll talk a little bit more about licensing perhaps at the end of this, but it's a very simplified scheme. There's just one SKU for hardware and one SKU for a license that you would purchase for a device. With our firewalls and our MX security appliances, I should say, you have the option for sort of integrated content filtering, and it comes with all of these sort of traffic shaping, group policy options that are also present in our access points. We just had a few more questions for you, Joe, from the audience. One goes back to the wireless. It was, have you noticed any difference in connectivity between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz clients?
I haven't, but that might just be me. We have both available on the APs, but I don't know if I can answer that effectively. I haven't noticed any issue, but I also haven't been trying to keep an eye on it. So.
Okay, and you're using MR24s, correct?
Yes.
For the most part, or you have a, okay, great.
Oh, wait, 24s here. I think the 16s are up in Maine.
The remote site. Okay.
I think.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit about any upcoming plans you have or anything that you are planning for going forward vis-a-vis Cisco Meraki equipment?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'm keeping an eye on, which I think you talked about at the top of the presentation, was the kind of the plug-and-play ability. Our business model is going to lend itself towards a business acquisition, I think, next year. It's nothing's been announced or anything, but that's how our business is managed. Then we look at an acquisition of a new company. We'll be looking to integrate the networks. So because there is enough value in the Meraki platform that whatever acquisition might be made available to us, I'm going to strongly consider replacing whatever network they have, assuming they're staying in the same building, with a Meraki solution. So again, we have the single, pane of glass view into our entire network, and because I do value that quite a bit. So I think looking forward, that's going to be something next year that we'll be keeping an eye on.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. I'm going to field a question from the audience that was for me, which maybe harken back to one of the earlier questions I asked you, which was, and the question is, how often are there firmware updates for the access points? So the answer to that is usually there'll be once a quarter. What will happen is for all of our equipment, not just access points, but the switches and the security appliances, we will have new feature and firmware updates available to existing customers. Sometimes it's little minor tweaks here and there, and often, though, there are substantial feature enhancements. And what happens is you can schedule a date and a time for those updates to be seamlessly pushed to your Meraki equipment, or you could opt out entirely from an update if you prefer. But this is actually a great way that we future-proof your hardware, because basically the access point or the switch or the security appliance you buy today will be less feature-rich than the one that you own 3 years from now, because we will have gone in and updated it. And actually I'll show in the demo one of the more recent firmware updates or feature updates that applied to our wireless access points. It's called Presence Analytics. All right. Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate your time. What we're going to do is we're going to demo Joe's network. And Joe, at any point, if you have suggestions or want to pipe up and highlight something, let us know. It's going to be a sort of a brief, very brief overview because we want to try to show the killer features of all of the product lines that Joe has. So we want to touch on the access points, touch on the switch, touch on the security appliance really quickly, and then we'll wrap up. And at the end of the session, we will continue with any questions that the audience has. So let me go ahead. What I'm going to do is go to my web browser, and what you're going to see me do is log in the way any of our customers would. And Joe has graciously permitted us access to his network, so we can view it here. What you're seeing is essentially an overview of Taxware's network. Like he said, there's 2 sites, one in Maine, one in Massachusetts, and from here I can very, very quickly get a vantage into the health and status of the network. I can see my different networks here. I could, if I wanted to expand them, get a sense for overall client usage, overall bandwidth consumption, how many devices are in each network, what kind of network we're looking at, if it's a wireless or switch or security appliance network, and sort of the uptime for the last week. What I can do from here is click into any single one of these little icons and drill down a little bit further, get an even more granular view of what's going on in my network, or I could search for something here if I wanted to, maybe find the switch network. I could come here and do that. What I'm going to do is start from the inside out and actually look at your wireless network first and give folks a little bit of a sense of that, and then we'll work out to the switches and then wrap up with the security appliance. So one of the really cool features that we have here with our access points is the ability to view them in a map. So our dashboard does integrate with Google Maps, and it's pretty automatic. You tell us where in the world your gear lives, and we'll show it to you on a map. With our access points, we have a really great little feature where you can come in and upload a floor plan view if you'd like, put your access points on it, and it's kind of a great way to help you troubleshoot in the event that a particular area of the building is having trouble perhaps connecting to wireless. You can very quickly come in here and see whether or not your APs are healthy. Green obviously means healthy. Red or gray means that they're offline or having some issues. You can also come and sort of get a sort of general status here in sort of a list form of all of your access points. It's very easy to see what's green and what's not. You can come in and change what time period you're looking at. So if you notice, I just changed from here looking at the last day to looking at the last month. And what that's done is over the course of a month, you notice these little red lines here showing me that there have been some reboots or some loss of connectivity during that time. But what I can do is I can click into any single access point. In fact, let me find one that is most heavily used here. Let's pick this guy. Come into an access point, and what I want to highlight here is that we've now drilled from an overview of our entire network and all the sites in our network, a view where we could very quickly assess the health of all of our sites. We've drilled down now into a single access point that easily and that quickly. And where we've landed is the access points configuration page. And all of our devices, whether it's a switch or a security appliance or an access point, they all have a configuration page that's similar to this. In the sense that you're going to have some configuration information and some status information up here. And then what you're going to have at the bottom are these live tools. Now these are built-in, real-time diagnostic troubleshooting tools built into the dashboard to help you remotely troubleshoot your gear. So here you can see we are looking at current clients on this access point. That's the default live tool. You can see that it's an MR24 access point. You can get a sense for which SSIDs it's broadcasting. And when I was talking about end-to-end visibility through this sort of single pane of glass interface, what's great is I can even see here which port on which switch the access point is plugged into. I could, if I wanted to, click into that switch, come to its configuration page, see its live tools, which are going to be slightly different than those of the access point. And then I can switch back to the AP if I want. So it's really easy to hop, skip, and jump from one device to another device, drill down from an overview into a more granular view, and zoom back out. A whole array of live tools here, but probably the real meat of information that folks really like to dig into is found on the client's pages of these individual networks. So from this view, this is where you're actually going to come in and see all of the wireless traffic on his Taxware Meraki wireless network for a given time period. And you're going to get a sense for, again, depending on which time frame, you're going to get a sense for the bandwidth that's being consumed, how many unique devices were on the network, what kinds of applications were consumed during that time. And what's cool is we do have this Google-like contextual search, so it's very easy to, for example, type iPad in the last week of the approximately 300 devices that connected to the Taxware network. 10 of those were iPads. And in fact, let me move this guy over here and select manufacturer so you know I'm being honest. You can search by the device type, like iPad or Android. You can even get down into the individual version or manufacturer of a device. You can search for operating systems if you'd like. So here I've searched for Windows. You can even drill down into the individual version of an operating system. So if I wanted to check and see if there were any legacy Windows XP boxes online, I could do that, find them here. And you can do this in a variety of ways. You can actually search for IP address, you can search for MAC address, you can search for the device name, its description. If you had integration with Radius, you could search by the username if you'd like. And what's great is that once you've actually gone in and found a bunch of devices, you can very quickly search or select them, I should say, and apply policies to them if you'd like. Whitelist, block, you can set group policies, and you can apply different policies depending on which SSID you're looking at for a group of devices. So it's very, very easy to come in and find a device very, very quickly based on search criteria here. Now similarly, we also sort of fingerprint or capture the application traffic that's passing across your network. So you can see here we've organized it automatically by type, but it's very easy to sort by usage and see which applications are consuming the most bandwidth on your network. And we, one of the benefits to us of being cloud-based is that we've algorithmically classified and tagged hundreds of websites and applications, and we're constantly updating these lists as we go forward. And there's nothing that you need to do on your end or install on the client side to get this visibility into the clients that I just showed you or the applications. Like I'm showing you now, this is just built into our gear, and we're able to provide this information to you based on sort of deep packet inspection that we do on the traffic passing through our APs and our switches and our security appliance. So here, for example, what you could do is click on miscellaneous web, since this is one of the top 10 applications being consumed, get a little bit more information about what this means. Scroll down, see the top clients contributing to this rule, to this miscellaneous secure web consumption. And you don't have it enabled, but you have the ability to enable a view where you can actually go in and see the specific destinations and applications that clients are going to. So because we're talking about miscellaneous web, perhaps we'd see something like, CNN.com, and we'd see the number of clients that had used or visited CNN.com and the active time spent per client there. So a really great way to kind of drill down and see exactly where your bandwidth is going. And what you can do is drill down into any single client device and come to the client's configuration page. So again, this is visibility that's innate and built into our equipment. There's nothing that you need to install on the client side, but lets you come in, get a sense for the client, which applications the client is consuming, and its specific bandwidth. Now, one thing I want to show you before switching very quickly to go check out the switches and the security appliance, I do want to show you presence analytics. This was an example of a feature that was pushed out as part of a quarterly update, something that a lot of retail locations are excited about, schools as well if they want to monitor traffic to a library perhaps, and essentially what it allows you to do, excuse me, is if you have folks near an access point that have a mobile wireless device or a device capable of Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi is turned on, that mobile device, of course, is going to be sending out probes looking for networks that it can join. Well, our APs can detect those probes regardless of whether a user connects to your network or not, and based on some algorithms that we have to determine whether based on signal strength and length of duration near an access point, whether that client device is a visitor or perhaps just a passerby, we're able to capture that information and present it to you here. So in this graph, you can see for a given wireless network, how many people just passed by your site and how many people actually stayed for a while. We're able to show you the engagement, or how long folks are staying within the vicinity of your access points. And we're also able to show whether or not they're repeat visitors. And this is, again, a fairly recent update that we announced a couple months ago. Folks who had wireless access points just woke up one day and had this visibility into their networks. And, it's just a really great example of, sort of the feature updates that we provide and the functionality that we provide to existing customers. And I want to just highlight that because Joe has a floor plan view here on the wireless, our beta feature that we're continuing to roll out, because we're continuing to develop presence, is the presence heat map. So what you can do is come in here and actually see geographically sort of the density of these mobile devices over time on his network, in a floor plan view. And again, this was no additional charge, no additional fees or per licensing necessary to get this feature. Now really quickly, I want to look at the switch. And then the killer feature of the switch, because again, the switch will have a configuration page and so the same sort of status page that we saw with the APs. What I want to talk about with the switch is something that is known as virtual stacking. It's a great feature. What we mean by that, and it's a little bit of a marketing term, but you can see all of the switch ports across your organization, regardless of what kind of switch they are, what kind of Meraki switch they are a part of, and you can, based on different search criteria, select a group of switches and operate on them en masse, configure them en masse. So for example, here we can see that Taxware has 1,430 switch ports, probably spread across multiple switches. And what we can do is do things like, based on either looking through a box here or typing in search criteria, but I could very easily say, you know, I want to find trunk ports. So you can see my type trunk ports. Trunk ports that are perhaps in ports 1 through 10, if there are any. So, and actually you can't see the port number here, but let me get it for you. So you see ports number 1 through 10 that are trunk ports. And again, I could refine my search further by whether or not, you know, they have port policies applied to them or port schedules applied to them, access policies and things of that sort. I could do searches based on the speed of the uplink and things like that. But once I have winnowed down a list of ports, I can select them, I can hit edit, and I can go in and do things like tag them, name the ports, enable or disable spanning tree and PoE, like I said, set a port schedule, or perhaps an access policy if it's an access port, and specify VLANs and voice VLANs. So, and you can see here that I would be updating 30 ports if I made any changes. So really, really useful feature there of the switch. And now because we are a little bit short on time, I'm going to just switch over to the security appliance very quickly. And by default, you get a great view here of a summary report. This is a built-in feature for all of our equipment. In fact, I just didn't demo it earlier, but this is a report that will provide a great sort of summarized view of your bandwidth and usage for a given time frame or a custom range that you might specify, and you'll get some good information about the top applications that are being consumed on your network, top operating systems, you know, which clients are consuming the most bandwidth, the number of clients per day, et cetera, and you can email this report to yourself or schedule an email to go out to you regularly. Now, what I want to show you from the security appliance point of view, which is the killer feature of the security appliance, is the site-to-site VPN, because we did, it looks like, get a couple of questions on this. So when you pull your VPN out of the box, or your security appliance out of the box, excuse me, VPN is going to be disabled. And what you're going to do is decide whether you want a split or a full tunnel VPN on your first MX. So we'll say split tunnel here. Then you're going to decide whether you want a mesh or a hub and spoke VPN topology. So we'll say mesh here. And you might actually be done at this point in setting up the first half of your IPsec tunnel. It'll depend on your subnets and which subnets you want to export across VPN, but you'll select those and then you'll hit save. And that's it. And you'll go to the second MX that you're connected to and do the same 3 little things. And what will happen is once you hit save, your VPN peers will start to populate down here. And you could check those out on the VPN status page as well. And this status page is great. It's got sort of a real-time heartbeat ping built in, so it's very, very easy to sort of see in real time whether or not your site VPN is healthy and up and running. And there's so much more that we could go into, but again, we are pressed for time, and I do want to be sensitive to folks. So let me switch back to the presentation. And let's wrap this up real quick. And then for those of you that can stay a little bit longer, maybe we'll hang out here and answer a few more questions. So just to wrap up the presentation, again, we have a couple of different product lines, starting with our wireless access points. So we have a couple different models of those. We've got 4 indoor, 4 indoor, 2 outdoor. We've actually just announced our MR34 access point, which is our new 11 AC access point, so we're really excited by that. That's one of the indoor models. The other 3 are the 11N models that we offer. An economic model with the MR12, a sort of a very commonly used dual radio model with the MR16, and sort of our top of the line MR24, which is also dual radio. All right, we have security appliances as well. Bunch of models of those. Those scale from branch network type security appliances that could support on the order of 20, 25 users, all the way up through to our MX600, which supports on the order of 10,000 users. All of our MX security appliances come with the ability to create that 3-touch site-to-site VPN between MXs. They come with WAN optimization built in. They come with stateful firewall. And of course, you can do things like enable 3G, 4G cellular failover on all of them. And you do have the option to also enable content filtering and intrusion detection and intrusion prevention soon. The prevention part is soon. The IDS is available today. If you bought a advanced security license. So all of that functionality is available to you. And then finally we do have switches. So we have access and in fact aggregation switches, which we recently announced and which will be shipping shortly. Those switches, the gigabit access switches, come in 8, 24, and 48 port configurations. You can choose whether or not you want PoE or not on all of those models. And of course, by PoE I mean PoE and PoE Plus. And then with the aggregation switch, those actually support 10 gigabit SFP Plus interfaces, and those come in 24 and 48 port configurations. And all of our switches support virtual stacking. You're going to get the same visibility into client devices and application usage that you saw with the APs. You get that with the MX security appliance as well. And we didn't get into it, but there's a lot of remote tools for things like packet capture and cable testing that are really, really useful. And then finally, Systems Manager. This is our last sort of product line. It's our free mobile device management. Again, iOS, Androids, Macs, PCs. It is literally 100% free. There's no catch. You can get started with it today if you wanted to at the URL at the bottom of your screen and play around with it. You would basically still use our dashboard, though, to manage your mobile devices. But it is a great way to get exposure to the dashboard and play around there. So if this is interesting to you, I would highly encourage you to give us a test drive in your own environment. You can basically request evaluation gear from us. All of our products are available for free testing and evaluation. And there's literally no risk to you. We'll pay the shipping both ways. So really risk-free. I would definitely try it. Check it out. Probably get it set up in about 15 minutes. And you know, we really believe that once you try our gear and test drive the dashboard for yourself, you're going to fall in love with it. So please give us a try. You could either call us or go to meraki.cisco.com/eval. All right, so we've reached the top of the hour, and we have wrapped up the presentation. I believe Joe might have to leave if he hasn't already. I think he had a meeting at the top of the hour. So what I will do, though, since it was a little bit rushed at the end, I will maybe hang out for 5 more minutes and try to answer as many questions as I can. And then we'll wrap up. If you did ask a question and it doesn't get answered, have no fear. We're capturing all of them, and we will be forwarding them to Cisco Meraki reps who will be contacting you with the answers. So, so have no fear. But let me pause for a second and ask Olivia what sort of questions we've got. Hang on. So one really good question was, does Meraki offer PCI compliance reports? The answer to that is yes, we do. In fact, let me actually show you where you would go. I'm going to switch out of Joe's network, actually, and go to the Cisco Meraki network so that you can see where this is. So on our wireless side, what you can do is you can come in here and you can say PCI report. And this is essentially a report that will just check your wireless network settings for compliance, as you can see with PCI DSS 2.0. What you would do is you'd run the scan. What will happen is you'll have a report that generates down here below. It's a really useful report. It will basically say you are not in compliance because of XYZ reason. It'll have a couple of links on the side that you can click to see what you would need to do to rectify that. And it will also show you what you're doing correctly. So it's a really nice, succinct tool to very quickly assess whether your wireless network is, in fact, PCI compliant. It's a great question. Hold on, I'll be right back. So we had another great question. It's a very common one, but it did come up quite a bit, which was, what happens if I lose WAN connectivity? And the short answer is that your network will continue to function with the last known configuration settings that it had. That's because, again, what we're passing up to our cloud is sort of the management and monitoring statistics, management traffic that we need. So the settings that you have, your firewall rules, your authentication to local radius or Active Directory servers, things like that, that will continue to operate and still be in play. But what will happen is because the management traffic is no longer able to be reached because the cloud is down, or your WAN connectivity is down, you won't be able to go in and tweak your settings. So your network will continue to operate with its last known configuration, but you won't be able to log in through the web-based dashboard and actually tweak settings. That said, we do have some local configuration that is possible in the event that you get yourself in a jam because you have misconfigured your equipment, but the devices themselves are designed to be cloud managed. Question, which is, can you block devices from the network by MAC address? I believe the answer is yes. We do have whitelisting and blacklisting that is available if you want to manually go in and specify those. A question about how to set up isolated guest networks and whether I could demo that. So yes, let me show you how you would set up a wireless guest network. So what you would do is you would come to this access control page. This is where you're going to come in, and after you have specified SSIDs to broadcast, because all of our APs support up to 15 unique SSIDs, you're going to come to this access control page, and this is where you're actually going to come in and say, let's take the guest network as an example. You're going to come in and say, what are my association requirements? Well, in the case of a guest network, it's going to be open. Do I want to have any splash pages associated with this guest network? And then you scroll down a little bit more, and what you would do is you would click NAT mode here. And this is what Joe was referencing and talking about as far as his network. What this does is, at this point, the Meraki guest SSID has now been put in sort of an isolated guest network mode. Essentially, clients connecting to that wireless network will receive a Class A IP address that prevents them from communicating with each other and communicating with your wired network unless you have firewall settings that permit it. So really easy. You can see that was about 3 clicks to go in and select my SSID and create a isolated guest network. All right, I'm getting the notification that we need to wrap up, so let me wrap this up and thank all of you for your time. Really appreciate you coming and joining us today. I hope this was useful to you. Again, if you had any questions that didn't get answered, have no fear. We've captured those. We'll get back to you. And if you can fill out, I believe there's a 2-question survey on your way out the door, that would be great. We're always trying to improve these webinars for future use. But thank you so much. Hope you all have a great day, and hope to see you at a future webinar.